Previously on the Jay and Dan podcast.
Granny's like Scarface. They're like, hey, Scarface, make me some cookies, you big cokehead.
Why did they turn on her because of her addiction?
Because they're straight edge.
80% of my view of a restaurant is the lighting.
80%?
Yes.
That food was garbage, but God, those Edison bulbs.
My grade 12 teacher had a sign at the playoff game that said, believe in the D.
I got to shout out my buddy, Graham Naismith. He's a big fan of you guys.
Well, tell him thanks.
Tell him to go himself.
Peen and urine have nothing to do with one another.
I love his ass.
You're listening to the Jay and Dan podcast, presented by our good friends at Coors Light.
I just cracked a silver bullet in honor
Yes.
of the pod.
That's.
I never realized until just listening to that right there. The silver bullet that cracks open in the intro. Oh, it sounds delicious.
Oh, why don't you have one right now?
We don't have any here right now.
Oh. Why not?
We got a fridge. It's got nothing in it.
You're supposed to say that.
Oh, I mean, it's full of ice cold.
Crammed
Coors Light.
full of cold filtered cold, brewed cold, packaged cold. It always seemed impractical to me that they did that. That's what's amazing about the Coors Light people. Like, it's not a practical thing to package your product when it's freezing cold and you're like, Jesus, could it just be room temperature? But that's the lengths that the Molson Coors people go to make sure that you get the world's most refreshing beer, Coors
And if a
Light.
Coors Light drops down to room temperature, it explodes. Because
Oh, yeah.
You don't want that.
It actually implodes in your hand.
Implodes.
It implodes, and then you're like, oh, what happened? And then you have to go to the fridge and get a properly chilled Coors Light. Thanks to Coors for sponsoring the pod.
We do have Coors Lights that are cold. They're in our office, but there's never really a good time to crack an ice cold beer at work.
Well,
Because some people might, quote unquote, frown upon it.
Yeah, about us drinking on the job, so to speak. Now, we did crack a couple open. I think we talked about it when we did a Coors corporate video a couple of weeks ago, because that seemed appropriate.
He drinks at lunchtime.
How about we pull the wool over producer Tim's eyes and say, yeah, another corporate video. We got to tape.
Got to shoot another one. I didn't get the memo. I didn't get the memo about that. So I was saying to Christoph, our producer, probably one of the most talented people to ever work for Bell Media. I said to Christoph,
Big time.
I said, I walked in tonight, Toolsy. We walk into, we've got our own sort of office area for Sports Center with Jay and Dan. We're away from the regular sports
It was a full house in that office time.
Yeah, everybody's there. It's a fun place to work. We have a great crew. But I say hi to everyone. I'm like, hey, everyone. Usually I say, hey, boys, because we only have one girl working on the show. We got to work on that. And Tim never even turns around. Everyone's like, hey. And I look at Tim, and he's still staring at TweetDeck. He's just engrossed in TweetDeck. Ooh, what did, I don't know, Bill Simmons retweet today from his Rewatchables pod or whatever?
See, when I overlook, is because Tim sits in the corner, as he should.
Far in the corner.
When I look over his way, it's like that area is pixelated. I can't even see over there because it's just like blocked out of my mind. So I see all the other people. I'm like, I don't even know what's over there.
Wouldn't you just turn around and be like, hey, that's all you have. It's no effort at all. Hip. It's quick way. Hip. Hey, I'm Tim. Hip. Instead, he's just like, oh, I wonder what Kate Fagan's gonna do now that she's leaving ESPN.
Yeah, just read it.
Kate Fagan seems like a nice person, but I want to do other things other than sports. You're working for ESPN. Where did you think you were working?
Hey, I know how you get on Tim's good side.
Huh.
Because he sends out an email every day with links that we're supposed to click on and investigate. Oh, let's talk about this.
He gets so mad because we never read them. We don't. That's on us.
So
we should read them.
Just respond, everyone. Tim, great ideas. This is really going to be a great day.
Because last week, he had something in the links, and then you, like, hours later were like, you know what I want in the show? This. You just went mental. No, you never read the links. That was in the links. 4 hours ago, I put that in the links.
Didn't that used to be a TSN show in the links?
Skins and fins and skins?
Was
no,
it in the flats or
Fishing in the flats?
Fishing on the links, I think, is a segment hosted by our good friend Pete Dalladay in Peterborough. I think I'm confusing things here.
Oh boy.
The voice.
I've never met the
Peterborough
man.
Pete's. You'd know. The Dalladay's legends. Actually, Bob McKenzie was in Peterborough. He got some pictures with Dalladay's. He said, everywhere I go with Dalladay's. And then 5 minutes later, after seeing this online, I got a text from my sister. She's right there with Bob.
Yeah.
Because he was at the chapters in Peterborough.
You should send the tweet out. Your sis in that pic looks so much like you. It's uncanny, actually.
So
I thought it was you for a second with a wig.
So he's pointing at my sister in this picture. They're all smiles, all guffawing. And she wrote, guess who got invited to the cottage?
Yes, boom. That's what I thought. I thought it was you in a wig trying to, arrange a way to get to the cottage. Like, hello, Bob. I'm Darlene, Dan's sister. Can you please invite me to the cottage?
Because I said, did you have a chat with him? She said, yep. He told me to take the pic and say I'm invited. Ha.
Ah, amazing. Do you think when you go to retire, and for anyone who's just listening for the first time, Bob McKenzie has what, by all accounts, is a incredible college. He should have a college, because Dan Patrick has one. I was interviewed by one of his students this week. He has a cottage in the Kawarthas that is apparently more spectacular than his own home. And other TSNers have been invited. I've sort of tentatively been invited, though the actual invites never really come to fruition. But
Wait.
Dan has specifically been asked to stay away, far away. And that's really tough for you because that's where you grew up. You grew up in the Kawarthas.
You have to clarify. You can't be tentatively invited to something and not have an invite.
Well, when it was announced that we were returning to TSN, you may remember it was the Trade Deadline Day show. They call it Trade Center. And Bob broke the news that we were coming back. And when he broke the news, he said, because I'll always remember this, he said, Jay and Dan, great to have him back. Jay's invited to the cottage. Dan, well, it's up in the air. Right. So,
okay, I see.
But then again, it's not like he's actually texted me like on a Tuesday and said, hey, doing anything this weekend? Why don't you bring the wife, the kid up to the cottage, bring some wine, we'll make some margaritas, we'll look at the sunset. Haven't gotten that text from Bob.
Maybe he just needs a reminder.
Yeah, maybe I'll send him a public tweet. And I'll get someone to clip that clip from the Trade Center broadcast and say, Bob, I took this as an invite. When should I show up?
Well, it's off season now, so he's closed up shop.
I bet you it's a 4-seasoner, though, because he's planning, right? Stoff seems to nod yes.
Well, yeah, cottages aren't like they used to be.
Well,
cottages
some
used to
are.
be a glorified tents.
Well,
They didn't have insulation. They had no heating. Now you can, most of them, I think.
Well, new ones, I guess, are probably more 4-season things. And then you can enjoy them all year round. Toolsy, I can't wait for you to build your cottage on the shores of Lake Scugog or somewhere up there.
Lake Scugog, that's right where Kate's from.
Kate Beirness, has she invited you to her cottage?
No, just saw her in the makeup room. She told me her dad's in the ONeal Fair, and I feel bad.
Wait, is her dad from Orono?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. He's playing clarinet in it. I think he plays in a band that practices in the area or something.
Oh, I see. Okay. Practices
she told
in
me
the
he's going to be like the lead clarinet. And then I said, well, guess what? And I told her how I got invited to be Santa, and I feel bad because I crushed her news. Her dad being in the parade. And I'm
right. So you tried to one-up her.
But I didn't. I was just...
You did. You were deliberately trying to ruin her story.
I had a story directly related to her story.
Seems like it was a bit of one-upsmanship was going on there.
No.
Why are you always trying to stifle Kate's creativity? Why are you doing that to Kate Beirness, one of the most beloved anchors in the history of TSN?
And I told her she's flying to Edmonton. We're headed there this weekend. And I said, we'll see you in Edmonton. What are the odds we run into her?
No chance. Well, you might.
I might, yeah.
Because you're going to stay on the Saturday.
What happened? Well, you're okay over there?
All right, I'm just pouring my tea. Because remember, you got me a nice tea. It was really nice. So you got me a tea. But we have to pour it because we don't want you to know where the tea's from into our beautiful Coors Light bat mugs.
Until Coors Light gets into the tea industry, we'll keep it under wraps.
You think Coors will get into the weed-infused drink industry? I think they're talking to some people, aren't they? The Auroras and
Everyone's talking because that's going to be the next big trend. A bit of a stifle a burp there.
Where'd you eat tonight? Any restaurant reviews? McDonald's? Yesterday you came in hauling some Wendy's in.
I heated up some pork tenderloin at home. It was delicious.
Oh, that sounds very good.
With some mashed potatoes. And then I still had a little hunger on, so I had to get a Mr. Sub.
What did you
feed my mouth?
What did you have for dinner tonight, Dan? Well, I started with a luscious pork tenderloin with some beautiful crispy potatoes on the side, and then I followed it with a cold cut combo on whole wheat from Mr. Submarine, a submarine franchise here in Canada.
They do a great job. And while eating dinner, against the suggestion of one of our writers, Brendo, I still watched SNL from the weekend, and he was correct. There was no point in watching.
It's not redeemable at all.
No, but I'm rooting for them. I always root for them.
I feel bad for the women on the show. They're fantastic. Kate McKinnon, Adie Bryant. Adie Bryant's really funny. I don't know. The dudes aren't so good. Our guest has just emerged into.
By the way, this was the first SNL
studio
since the Ariana Grande Pete Davidson breakup, and they never referenced it.
Thank God.
For the first time.
Thank God. Our guest has just walked into the studio, and he's going to come join us right over here. It is TSN hockey analyst Craig.
You don't have to tiptoe. Come on over.
Oh, yeah.
It's
you
not
can
a
just
secret.
stroll right in. Craig's like in the middle of doing a Leaf broadcast.
Oh, crap. Is this bad timing?
Yeah, I think it's kind of not great, is it? Yeah?
Oh, you're going to load up on an O. Henry.
Yeah, you got an O. Henry?
No, what happened with the O. Henry was, I didn't read the correct combination of the chocolate bar one.
I hate that
and
so much.
It comes down and I'm like, oh, no.
What were you? So you wanted a Snickers instead, right?
No.
Oh, what?
I wanted the almond chocolate-covered almonds.
Oh.
Okay.
Interesting.
It was right next to it. And it was D3 and I hit D2.
There's something about chocolate-covered almonds that seem like you could convince yourself that was a healthy snack somehow.
Well, that's what you're trying to do a lot of times when you're at the vending machine.
Right.
You're looking at it and you're kind of, what's the healthiest option here?
Speaking of healthy people, what do you think of this guy, Jeff ONeal?
What do I think of Jeff?
Yeah.
Authentic.
Yes, agreed. What's with his face? What's he saying here? It looks like he's stifling
You know
something.
what? I'll tell you what's going on. What we need on that thing is all the thought bubbles.
Oh, God.
Because there'd be many, many thought bubbles going on when that picture was taken.
Wouldn't you like to just follow him around for the day? Or maybe not. Maybe
He would let you, I'm sure.
I don't know.
It's not like
so
hiding
sure.
anything. Yeah, sure, why not?
People ask me all the time, what's Jeff like? I said, exactly as you see him.
Yep.
That's why I use the word authentic. I mean,
Yes.
I've known Jeff a long time, and he is exactly what you see. There's no facade there. There's no airs.
Like when he played, did you? Because I always think of guys like Jeremy Roenick. When he played, everyone's like, of course he's going to be a broadcaster. He's just great with the reporters and stuff. But there's also like Jeremy. I really like Jeremy, but there's like kind of a, there's a facade to Jeremy a little bit, like he's putting up a bit of a wall. Whereas Jeff, it's like, I wondered when he played, did you know that he was going to be a broadcaster? Like, did you know that he would be the kind of guy who just wouldn't pull punches?
Yeah, Jeff never pulled punches, and Jeff is really intelligent. I think that's the other thing about him is that, he can take information and he can distill it and he can think about it, and then he's obviously going to give you opinions. He loves giving opinions. I also think what's amazing about Jeff too is how self-deprecating he can be.
I'm just going to do this. How's that? Better?
Yeah.
There.
how self-deprecating he can be. When he talks, he always goes, well, I should know what a lazy player looks like. I played like that sometimes. He doesn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't try to pretend he's something that he wasn't. A lot of people in any walk of life, they want to try to gloss over what they were. I get it. It's what happens. Not Jeff.
Yeah, it's
What
true.
what former players out there that retired and didn't get into broadcasting where you're like, man, I wish he had?
That's a really good question. I know Brett Hull did it for a little while. Like Brett, to me, what I wish is that he would have stayed with it longer.
Yeah.
Because he is so good and he's so smart, and he's another one. This is what you're getting. And
I mean,
if you don't like it,
you talk about a guy kind of in the Jeff mold, right? Who, great player, but also doesn't care what other people think of him. And didn't Brett Hull have that famous line, I don't like hockey, I'm just good at it?
yeah, he did. He also had a line about Ken Hitchcock. He didn't. Somebody had seen him and Ken talking prior to a game, and they were quite engaged. And they said, "Oh, geez, you and Ken are talking." He goes, "Yeah, we have really good talks, just as long as it's not about hockey."
Yeah, exactly. You have such an amazing story. I wanted to. Can I talk about your mom being Punch Him Lack's secretary?
Sure, you can.
How does this happen?
That's crazy.
How does that happen?
Well, I'm not really sure how it happened, but I mean, I would imagine that it was something, with a job application somewhere along the line. That's what I'm guessing. I mean, like back in when did she start? 1956, 1957. She was 8 years old, or 18 or 19. So that's when she went in for an interview with, I think the gentleman's name was Leonard, and he was in the finance department. And I think she started in a different department.
With the Leafs. Right.
And then within days, they needed somebody over in the hockey, and so she went over there, and the rest is history.
And your entire upbringing was hockey, hockey, hockey.
Yeah, and you know where my mom and dad met? You probably don't.
At a hockey arena.
In Peterborough.
Really?
No
The
way.
Memorial Center?
Yep.
Oh,
So
yes.
my dad was working with the Rochester Americans, which was Toronto's farm team at the time. And so training camp was in Peterborough. And so my mom and a bunch of her friends decided on a weekend they were going to go over to Peterborough. And that's where she met my dad. Punch Him Lack, when my mother told Punch Him Lack that she was going to marry my dad, Jack, he said, "Oh, come on, get serious." And she goes, No. He goes, "Listen, if you're marrying Jack, you can do it at Center Ice at Maple Leaf Gardens." And kind of as a ruse, right? She said no, but I think she regrets that she didn't get married at Center Ice at Maple Leaf Gardens.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, they didn't do it.
That would have been pretty amazing. See, I didn't realize you were born in the States. I didn't realize that you're an American citizen. And are you a naturalized Canadian citizen?
I'm like your
then?
daughter.
I was exactly going to say
the day
that.
I was born, I had dual citizenship.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
so
right. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. But that means you still have to pay taxes down there every year, right?
I don't have to pay as long as I'm not earning U.S.
Right.
income.
Right.
But you have to file.
Yeah.
And it's a royal pain in the butt.
Exactly. That's
to
what I meant
prove
to
that
say.
you
have
made
to-
no money.
Yeah.
In the
well,
States.
there's so many things that they want to try to make sure that nobody's hiding money that's rightfully theirs. And
Yeah.
So that's just part and parcel of the IRS.
But you
So far-
mostly grew up in Montreal, correct?
Yeah. Well, my formative years, I would say, were in Montreal.
Yeah.
So.
And so for you, what is that? Does that feel like home for you, Craig?
Yeah, it is. My mother still has her house there, and my wife is from there, and family is there, friends. I mean, that's when you grow up in a community, and that's really when I say your formative years, you coming into your teens, and then you go to school there, and that's all your friends. That's your friend group, and to me, Montreal is home.
So how many hot dogs did you have at the old Forum?
You want to know something?
Those
Dan?
were good hot dogs.
Oh, the toasty, like the best, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, so back to Jeff ONeal. Jeff tells a great story. I'll tell it for him. He went in, and I think he was playing. He might have been a scratch, and he went into the Forum, and he had a plate of hot dogs. And they told him, you can't take it into the press box area. So he put them in his pocket. I think he said he had 4. And he did. I mean, they were good. And they're not big, right? And the lineup starts, there's a race right at the end of the period to go get them. They're pretty good.
They used to have beer in the press box in Montreal.
Oh, yeah. Yes, they did. You used to go and sit in the press room after the game. they'd serve beer, and you'd sit around and people would talk and have a beer, and
With Red Fisher from the Gazette.
Yeah, well, he was the man. Him and Jacques Beauchamp and all those guys. I remember one year, I'll never forget. I only went into the alumni room once. No, I was there twice, but the first time I went into the alumni room, Bob Gainey took me in, and I mean,
Peterborough.
You're growing up, and you're in awe of the Montreal Canadiens. I was in awe. Like, I mean, that was my team. I mean, you're growing up, and my timing was good because. You know, they were winning all those Stanley Cups.
Okay.
They were doing better than okay. But I remember going into the room, and you know, Bob, he introduced me, but Jean Beliveau and Henri Richard were sitting down.
Wow.
And like you're coming up, and you're kind of like your knees are a little bit knocking and shaking, and I come in, and so Bob says, "I'd like you to meet." So Henri Richard and Jean Beliveau stand up, right? And I'll never forget, Jean Beliveau goes, "Hi, I'm Jean Beliveau." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know who you are." Like, I know exactly who you are. Like, but they were so gracious, and they're so polite and, you know, welcoming, really what they were. I think it might have been a month later, I was sitting in the Montreal airport, and I was grabbing a bite before a flight, and Henri Richard was there. And I saw him. He says, "Oh, hi, Craig. How are you?" Like, and it was like,
wow,
you remember me?
Wow,
like those types of it is those types of things. They remain with you for a long time. So
when you started with Dallas, is that right?
Minnesota North Stars.
With Minnesota,
do you remember
then
the
went
Minnesota
to Dallas.
North Stars?
Gosh, do I ever? In fact, I still call them that on the show because I love that name so much.
So I got to tell you a quick story. I was at the Under-17 Hockey Challenge, which is the best, in this case, the best 2002 born players in the world. It's a great tournament. And last year in the NHL first round, 23 of the players drafted in the first round played in that tournament. Wow. So I was just there in St. John. Anyway, there's a kid playing for the U.S. His name is Blake Biondi. So I met him, introduced myself, and we drafted his dad with the Minnesota North Stars. So we're standing there. And I'm saying, like, I go, yeah, we drafted his dad with the Minnesota North Stars. And so Blake knows, right? Other kids are like, Minnesota North Stars? what are they?
What's that?
Like, if you tell, I mean, these are kids born in 2002. They don't have any other memory but the Wild, right?
That's
but
right.
Like, you tell people that there was no hockey in Minnesota for 7 years. That was, that was a little bit of a gap in a hockey mad city.
Yeah, it was weird that they moved. And when you think about how great of a hockey market that is in the States, it's so strange that they had to wait. You know, they had to lose them and then wait to get another
Yeah, were
team
there
back.
crowds ever as bad as, say, Florida's now?
We had, I remember one night, Dan, we were playing Montreal, ironically. There was 4,000 people in the building.
Wow. Wow.
So,
I didn't know it got that bad.
And yeah, what had happened is that I think people just had become tired of the Minnesota North Stars. So it's like, I always compare it to like it's like a burn in the forest. Like you got to have that burn before you can get fresh, the trees and planted and everything. And I think that's what needed to happen there. There was just a lot of challenge. I shouldn't say challenges. That's not the right way to put it. But the people really had become. There was apathy. They didn't care. I joked that you could have played the game naked. Like the players could come out naked. I don't think it would have interested anybody.
Is Yuri Lehtinen the most underrated? You drafted Yuri Lehtinen. Is he the most underrated player in the history of the National Hockey League?
Well, there's a couple of them. I mean, there's a lot of talk about Claude Provost, who won 8 or 9 Stanley Cups about him being in the Hall of Fame. I can only tell you this about Yuri. Whenever anything needed to be fixed, you put Yeri on it. So, like I'm telling you, I mean, like if there was a toilet backup, Yeri could fix it.
What? What?
He was amazing. I'll tell you what, though. But when I say fix it, any problem on the team, just put Yeri with that player.
Wow.
Get him going, right? Mike Modano, who was great and played a lot with Yeri, he would break out in hives and rashes when Yeri would leave his side, and then we'd put him somewhere else to go play with another player. And then Mike was like, "Please, I need him back." Like it was like an appendage to Mike. But Yeri was great.
Like I find now, Dan and I talk about this all the time. There's something weird about Dallas. It's like where players go to disappear now. Like Jason Spezza was on TSN, I don't know, 1,000 more than Jeff ONeal, like 1,000 times a week when he played with the Sens. And now you're almost like, oh yeah, Jason Spezza plays for. It's a weird thing because you won a cup there, right? Like it's not a terrible hockey market, But for some reason, the Jamie Benns and the Sagans kind of slide under the radar a little bit there.
Yeah, and I think the team hasn't been very good for the last probably dozen years. When I say not very good, they just haven't challenged, and they went through a real down. And, you have these really good players, Sagan, Ben, and, Radulov is there now, Spezza's career. But when you don't have traction, like in the league, as a really viable team, I think you do get lost. And I think that it doesn't. I think that you look at where Tampa Bay was for a few years, even though they were able to draft Stamkos, they were kind of in the wilderness a little bit.
For example, if Zubov had played for the Leafs, he's in the Hall of Fame now. He's not waiting.
He should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, absolutely.
He is. Do you know there's only 2 players in the history of the National Hockey League, defensemen, that led their league and led their team in scoring in the year they won the Stanley Cup?
Bobby Orr and Zubov?
Only 2.
Wow.
Zuby was unbelievable, and his heart rate, I'm going to guess, was probably about 32 beats a minute. Like, he never ever, you never saw him ever panic. Like, Madano tells a story about the first time we had Sergei, and he was moving up the middle of the ice, and he kind of goes, you're breaking through the middle, and you're just kind of going like, oh yeah, like I just got to do this, fake it that I'm breaking open, right? And the pass is never going to get there. He says the puck goes right off his stick, and he's like, oh, he goes, I never missed another pass from Zuby, because you didn't want to miss him. He was a brilliant player.
Can we talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins for 2 seconds?
Sure.
I just want to get your take. Is this just a blip on their season right now, the way things are going? Or are we seeing the demise of the Pens? I can't see it with the amount of talent they still have on the team.
Yeah, I don't think it's a demise like we've seen in L.A. and we've seen in Chicago, because Crosby and Malkin and Letang or Kessel. They're still in a. There
we go. Oh, you can keep going.
They're still an elite. They're still elite players.
Yeah.
And I think that, they made a couple of changes in the offseason. And, right now I think they're playing what I would call self-inflicted wounds. So I think those can be corrected. Yeah. And Mike Sullivan was not very happy after last week's game against New Jersey. And, he pointed out what their problems were. And then on Saturday night when they were really poor against Ottawa, all those things, came out. So I think that they can fix those. Obviously, Crosby's out of the lineup with an injury, but I don't think it is a demise. And Jim Rutherford's trying to address some of the things, and I think that Jim has shown his record shows that he can make the difference in terms of adding players, and that's what he has to do. And Matt Murray has to be a little bit better too, right?
And he adds Pearson last week. Like, he adds players that you're like, oh yeah, that seems like a good idea. Like, give that guy a change of scenery. Like, that makes sense.
Well, yeah, what's interesting, Jay, is that for Jimmy, and he won the cup in Carolina. Then Carolina had their struggles, and then when he went and made the changes, just about this time 3 years ago, the coaching change, the team was kind of mired in a little bit of a slump, much like they are now. But he went out and he traded for Hagelin, and he got Trevor Daley, and they called up Brian Rust and Connor Sheary, and they brought in Mike Sullivan.
Yeah.
So I think, and then they traded for Ron Hainsey, and they traded for Justin Schultz. So I think Jimmy has done a real nice job of identifying not only what his team needs, but players that can fill those roles. And it's always nice, though, when you have Crosby and Malkin and Kessel and Letang, and you're just kind of adding around them. But Jimmy has done a nice job. And to your question, don't bet against them.
Who's the most underrated team right now in the NHL?
It might be the Columbus Blue Jackets. And the reason I say that is because we've seen what Bobrovsky can do. They got 2 really good defensemen in Werenski and Jones. Panarin's an elite scorer. Pierre-Luc Dubois is really going to another level. And they have a type of team that makes life hard on you. They can play a skill game. They can play a hard skating game. They forecheck well. And the last 2 years, they've lost to the eventual Stanley Cup champion in the first round of the playoffs. I mean, they had Washington down 2-0 last year. And in the game 3, they had posts and whatnot. So I just think that the way they're playing, some of the experiences they've gone through, the evolution of some of their younger players, that's a team that I think is ready to take a step up and start to scratch on the doors of those top teams.
That team hates Torts, though, right?
Does any
team after his comments?
Does any team love Torts? It's like saying, that team hates Ken Hitchcock. Right?
It's a good point. Like, I really believe, like, we use the word hate, right? And you can like your coach and respect him. You can hate him and respect him, but you can like him and not respect him. And I don't think that John lacks respect from his players, and I think that's real key in terms of being a coach. And I really do believe, though, Dan, that John has changed in some ways that where he's evolved.
I think the Vancouver thing?
I do.
Yeah.
I do, and I really admire him. When he won Coach of the Year a couple years ago, I saw him at the draft. It might have been at the awards, and I went up and I just said, hey, you know what? We can be critical when things are going a certain way, and you may be deserving of it, whether you agree with it or not. But you deserve massive credit. What you've done is significant, and and just really, really congratulated him with what I felt was more than deserving. And I do think he's tried to evolve. I mean, I don't know if you heard his recent comment about the young kids in the game. And he said about there's lots of youth in the game, and there's going to be mistakes. He goes, and I realize I can't correct every mistake. We got to find a way to win, and we got to understand what the mistakes are. And so I think that John is.
Yeah, I was
adapting.
referring to when he said all the players are buddy-buddy now.
Oh, no, I know. But they are buddy-buddy.
Yeah, they are.
What's wrong with that?
I don't think there is anything wrong, right? Like,
No.
I mean.
But I also understand his point, like what he's saying. As a coach, it would kind of maybe get you a little frustrated.
Well, if we go back to the 70s, when you two young gentlemen weren't even born, but I'll go back to the 70s.
Well, we were born.
In the 70s.
Yeah.
But they had the bench clearing brawls.
Yeah.
So did the game become any less or more friendly after they got rid of the bench clearing brawls? There might be people that say, "Oh yeah, well there's no bench clearing brawls. The players are so friendly now."
Well, how about that? You were tweeting about it. So was I, because I was watching, and I know you were. That game, that first period between Calgary and Edmonton Saturday night.
It was unbelievable.
That was like as intense as I've seen, well, for certainly those two teams in a long, long time.
Yeah, I agree with you.
It was
Jay.
about time.
Well, I hadn't seen, and it was one of those games where there was no place to run, no place to hide. I mean, it was one of those games where, if you were going to play on the 200 by 85, you had to play and play hard, and it was a heck of a game. And Edmonton had every reason to be disappointed losing that game, but David Riddick, I mean, he stole it. It was great.
And so Edmonton, God, you must get so tired of answering these questions. What is going? They can't have Todd around anymore. Like, I feel like Todd's run out of rope there, hasn't he?
Okay, so and it's fair to say that perhaps you want to make a coaching change. Joe Quenneville just got let go, right? I mean, with his record, and you make a coaching change, but sometimes you need a new plan. You want a different plan. You want a new voice. But the Edmonton Oilers, in my view, you can change the coach, but their problems are still the same. They do not have enough talent.
Yeah.
And
actually, I should qualify that, Craig. It's Chiarelli who should get fired. It's not Todd.
Well, I mean, and even if you go back before Peter, and I'm not an advocate for firing anybody, but you have to find in the manager's role, you have to find solutions to the problems, right? And either you find it, or they're going to find somebody else that can. That's the job. But I've said this many times that when they won the lottery and got McDavid, it was a blessing. We know what the blessing is. You got the best player on the planet, but it was a curse because it put the spotlight right on the Edmonton Oilers, and the spotlight was, we don't have enough talent around this guy. They have McDavid, Draisaitl, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. After that, their next forward would probably be a number 9.
Yeah.
So that means you don't have a 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 forward. They don't have defensemen, according to their general manager, that can make passes.
Yeah.
They don't. They have a goaltender that's finding it very difficult to get hit with the puck.
Yeah.
These all add up to 6 losses and whatever 7 games. So but they drafted terribly for a decade.
Yeah.
And
they did.
but now they have this wonderful player, and everybody goes, "Oh, you're going to waste McDavid." Well, that's the curse. That's the curse of the Edmonton Oilers. So. I think they can change the coach if they feel they need a different message. Until they get more skill and more talent in there, it's not going to change, in my view.
How much longer do we have you for?
Yeah, I know we're keeping you.
How much longer do you want me for?
Well, we'll keep you right to the end if we can.
Can we go kind of related to hockey, but unrelated? Down the road in Calgary, people there. After the plebiscite did not go through, so they said no to going for the 2026 Olympics. What is the mood there? Because you would know firsthand.
Yeah, I voted
Because
yes.
a lot of people voted yes. And if you just went by online alone, you're like, yes is going to win, no problem. But they did not at all.
Yeah, well, and it was quite the opposite. I mean,
Yes.
it was
Yeah.
57, just under 57%
Correct.
to 43. So the no vote. So my own view on it is I mean, I think the case for why the Olympics should be there. I mean, for the people that are in sport and been around the Olympics, I think people knew it, but I think that it wasn't laid out very well. I think there was real delays in getting the information out and for
They
people
only
to
had to
understand.
build 2 venues.
Yeah.
2.
And the renovations with existing venues now. So, one of the concerns now is with the existing venues, the money that goes into it, where are you going to get it from now? Right. This was a chance to, use, and we know about the legacy of Calgary. But that being said, so we can talk about the messaging and the delivery of the information and where the gaps were. But the other challenge for Calgary and by extension Alberta is the economy has really had some challenges here in the last number of years.
Yeah.
And so I think that, where the business community, is looking to try to get a reason to invest in Alberta, it's not there right now from the provincial government because of everything that's gone on and where the pipeline discussion is.
Right.
So I think that there was too many different from the business community to the council, because a lot of councillors didn't want the Olympics. I mean, this nearly didn't get to a plebiscite.
That's right.
You're right.
It, by one vote.
Yeah,
it did.
exactly. So I think there was some disconnect in a lot of different areas. Now, the interesting thing that I keep hearing, and I keep hearing it from people that I know have knowledge, they're talking now about 2030 as being viable.
Okay.
So, and I think what's happened with the IOC is they're running out of cities.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course they are.
And so they're looking at Calgary and they're going, well, wait a second here, you're still a viable city.
Yeah.
Maybe 2026 doesn't work, but does 2030 work?
Right.
So we'll see.
And
but
you make it such a great point, Craig. Like, if you've lived in Alberta, no province in this country, the economy's so up and down, and when it's good, it's so good. So if it's 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and they're bidding, maybe this is completely different, right? Maybe it goes through no problem and everyone's feeling good. But right now, everything's in the skids in Alberta, right?
yeah, it is. And when you're looking for revenues and people are feeling that the teachers and, education needs more money. And so they're saying, well, where are we going to put our money? And I think that they're separate and distinct in one regard, because where are you going to get that investment into your city that allows you to build up
And trying to
some-
convince people, well, we're going to get it all back. We're
Right.
going to see a massive return for 10, 15 years.
Dan, you
That's
nailed
tough
it.
to sell.
Yeah, well, even longer than that if you look at it. And it is
Yes.
tough to sell because people want to look at the short term, right?
And I can see why you vote no, because you're like, why doesn't the IOC come here and build everything?
Yeah.
Why do we have to put any money up?
Yeah.
So I can see both sides.
Yeah, I do too, Dan. And
So do the Flames get a rink now because they said no to this?
Yeah, this is...
well, it's interesting because it's the same argument. It's the same
It is the exact same.
Like, are we going to put
Why should
money
we
into
pay for this?
an arena? Like, I mean, going across the country and being in smaller communities where you see new facilities getting built, they're all multi-use, where the greater community can benefit to the greatest extent. Swimming pools, field houses, hockey arenas, everything that goes into a building if you want government money. And so people are looking now, they say, oh, you need a field house in Calgary. Well, it's great to say that you get a rink, but how many people use the arena in a population of what, about 1.3 million? People are saying, well, I don't go to the concerts. I don't care if they don't get 20 concerts a year.
Exactly.
I don't go to the hockey games. Why should I? And that number far outweighs the people that do. So there's quite a challenge for the Flames in terms of what this means, and I'm not saying it can't be done, but
Just
it's
keep
there.
Gary out of there, because remember when Gary went in? He
Oh,
said,
yeah,
But that's what Gary. I mean, what Gary's been able to do is go in and do. But that's what Gary does.
Yeah, that's what Gary does. He's a Hall of Famer now, Craig. He's a Hall of Famer. Do you keep in touch with Roman Turek?
You know what? I haven't talked to Roman in a couple years. I was in Česká Budovica. I'm trying to think what year it was. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and I connected with him. So
Amazing.
I'll tell you what, Roman was a wonderful guy. I got to tell you a funny story. So he's from Česká Budovica, and that's where Budvar beer is made. So Budweiser was never in Europe because Budvar had the rights, which is Budweiser in Czech. Budvar.
Okay.
So they now Budweiser can be sold anywhere. So we drafted Roman in 1990, and we signed him, I forget what year, but we were over there, and we went in, spent some time with him. we went over to the Boudoir Brewery for lunch, and I don't remember what. I know the beer was good, and I think I was in bed about 6:15 at night. But it was a wonderful, wonderful time with Roman.
Yeah. And when you took a chance on him in Calgary, had you seen something in him during your time with the Stars and stuff that said, this is my guy, like this is it?
Yeah, absolutely, Jay. And we had drafted him in 1990. We had watched him grow. We had spent time with him, and then he was part of our Stanley Cup team in Dallas. So I knew Roman, like I knew him really well, and I think that when he came into Calgary, he really played well. And if you go back and look at his record in Calgary, it was pretty good. After he signed the long-term contract, the pressures of being able to play in Canada. And you know what?
It doesn't work for everyone.
It doesn't. And Mark Bergevin pointed that out about Max Domi.
Yeah.
He thrives on it.
And
some players do and some players don't. I'm not suggesting that he didn't, but our team in Calgary's trying to move forward. You're in a pre-salary cap economic CBA where and the budget was tight.
Yeah.
So now you're expecting this guy to do to be the, I don't want to say savior, but that's kind of what the expectation was based on the contract. And that weighs on somebody. And can somebody kind of move into that area where you become more comfortable? Yes, you can. But, I think that's
not everyone can.
And then he got hurt, and Kiprusoff came in, and Darryl made a really good trade to get Kiprusoff.
Yeah.
And then we know what happened with Mika. Mika just
took
lights
it,
up.
ran it.
Yeah.
Was Iginla the best draft pick you ever oversaw?
Yeah, I don't think he can. I don't think you can argue that one.
Yeah.
I think when you
saw him in Kamloops, were you just like, wow, this guy?
No, actually, no. He wasn't a wild player, Jay.
No.
And it was during the lockout of 94, 95. So, it took us, we spent a lot of time watching Jerome. And, at the end, we were picking 11th, and we were very comfortable with Jerome. And we thought he'd be a very good player. We thought he'd be a 30-goal scorer, a power winger. And tell you what, he was way better than we thought he'd be. We thought he'd be good.
That's always good.
It is. But, I also think when he got invited to the Olympic team in 2001, with an injury, he got invited to that camp late. And they called him down. He thought people were punking him.
Right.
When he got the call. He didn't think it was real.
Yeah.
But then he found out, and then he went there, and then he went to the Olympics, obviously won the gold medal, scored 50 goals that year. I think when we talk about stages of a player's career, I think that really launched him to another levels too, because all of a sudden he's going, wait a sec, I am good enough.
I belong with these guys.
Yeah, he does, and he did.
Yeah.
Where's he spending retirement? Because he's
in
left
Boston,
Alberta,
right?
So he did stay in Boston, eh?
Yeah.
Well, he went to Colorado, but he loved he's got his oldest daughter's a really good hockey player, and his two boys are really good athletes. And him and Kara, his wife, really felt that Boston was a lovely place to have kids, and he really enjoyed the area and the sports. He wasn't traveling all over, flying on weekends. So he really enjoyed it and felt that it was a really good place. He said,
he can be anonymous there.
Well,
because if he retired in Alberta, it's a different story.
Oh, yeah.
Then it's everywhere he goes.
Everybody knows what he looks
Hey,
like.
speaking of going back to Flames goalies, Mike Vernon, if you put two of his pads together, you couldn't even make up one current goalie pad, correct?
Correct. Are you talking about the height of it or the width?
All of it. Like all of it. Seriously, if you put Mike Vernon's gear on a current goalie right now, how many goals would be scored in a game?
Oh, there'd be 17.
Them,
Like, first of all, the equipment, like the goalies wouldn't want to stand in front of the shots.
Yeah, they must have had so many bruises, those guys.
Well, you saw what the...
Yes, I used to wear those. I had horsehair pads.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So anyway, Mike was a terrific goaltender. And, the great debate about him and Andy Moog and Chris Osgood is, are they Hall of Fame players? And when I look at their numbers and look at what they all accomplished in terms of...
With what they had,
I think they're Hall of Fame players.
I would
really
love
do.
to just do a podcast with Craig, just players who aren't in the Hall of Fame and should they or should they not be in.
Steve Larmer.
Oh, Hall of Famer.
There you go.
Yeah, no.
I mean...
Steve, for sure. I mean, Steve is amazing.
Like I think of Alfredson. Like, again, I don't mean to bring it back to the Leafs all the time, but I can't understand how Alfredson's not a first ballot guy and Sundin is a first ballot guy.
Well, I mean, it's a fair question, but
like, I'm not. I want them both to be in, but I just don't know why one is a first ballot guy.
Yeah, I hear you, and I think when you try to distill the numbers, but Matt's
Great player.
Yeah.
No question. Put
But
him
I
in.
think, I think Alfredson's a Hall of Famer.
Right.
So
Me too.
But does it have to? Brendan Shanahan didn't get on the first ballot.
Fair enough.
So
yeah.
one of the things I say is players want to get in on it's quite an honor, and I get it. But if you're a Hall of Famer, it doesn't matter when you get in. You're a Hall of Famer.
That's fair.
Does somebody go, yeah, but you're a second ballot?
Yeah. No one does that.
No one remembers.
No one does that. That's a very good point.
So I just kind of, and depending on what the class is and what it's
Yeah.
all at. So once you're in, and I really do, I think Daniel Alfredson is a Hall of Fame player.
I think he gets in this year. I hope he does anyway. Craig, this has been awesome. We're going to let you go. We
Okay.
got like 10 minutes. We're going to let you go finish watching this Buds game here. They're playing your underrated Columbus Blue Jackets.
What I would say is don't sleep on the Blue Jackets. Right?
Yeah.
Don't sleep on them. And
Well, I find this Bobrovsky thing perplexing, and not just because he's my favorite player, but because it's almost like they're, with Corpusalo. Like, I don't know what's going on. I'm sure you know, and I don't know if you can say.
No, I don't. One of the things that, the stable of insiders with Bob McKenzie, Darren Drager, and Pierre LeBrun, the second to none anywhere in sport. They're great. And they know what's going on.
Yeah.
I watch and make my, you talk to people, but not to the extent. So I don't know what's going on with Sergei Bobrovsky. But I do know this. I do know that when you consider what a good goalie he is, and John Davidson has talked about it, they'd like to keep him. But
Yeah,
they
of
also
course.
know if they can't, life will go on.
But I guess they've got Corpusalo. It's almost like they're pushing him away or something. And like Bobrovsky's lines at the beginning of the season about, well, the team knows my plan. It's just baffling to me. Like, I'd love to talk to Yarmo and just say, like, what's going on there?
You want Yarmo's number? I'll give it to you.
I'd
you
love
can-
that, actually.
I'll give you Yarmo's number, and you can give him a ring and go, hey, this is Jay. What's going on with Bobrovsky?
What's going? And good job on drafting Pierre-Luc Dubois,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that was out of nowhere.
The subjects could be numerous.
Oh,
there.
man, I could have a great
Yarmo,
conversation with
I hope
Yarmo.
he doesn't answer you in Finnish, because I don't know how your Finnish is.
How's
but-
Yarmo's English? Is it
Excellent,
good?
outstanding. He went to Clarkson University. He
Okay,
graduated
so
from
yeah,
Clarkson,
I guess he's
yeah.
a smart guy.
Yeah, he is. His English is very good. They joke about Finnish people. Like, nobody's ever learned Finnish language. You're either born into it, or nobody. It's so complicated and so hard.
Right, you can't like move to Helsinki and learn it.
No. Nobody goes and says, I'm going
Right.
to learn Finnish.
Right.
If you try to get one of those language courses, they don't teach Finnish.
Right.
It's too hard, right?
Yeah.
So, they grow up learning how to speak Swedish and English.
Yeah.
Because that's how they have to communicate
Right.
with the rest of the
Right,
world.
right.
If they decided that they were not going to learn those languages, they would be isolated.
Well, listen, Craig, this has been
Craig, we
awesome.
really appreciate
I
it.
could hang out and just talk to you for hours and hours about this stuff. So hopefully we can get you back on again.
Oh, you can get me
real
on
soon.
whenever you want.
Yeah,
Who are you
this
taking
will
in
be
the Grey Cup?
Calgary.
Of
I'm
course you
taking-
have to.
Although
That's
I got to tell you, though, Trevor Harris looks amazing.
Man.
Yes.
Like he really does. If there's and you look at the Red Blacks, they're playing really well. The Stampeders have found their game a little bit here in the last little while, but the Red Blacks look like they're really.
Do you have a
going.
Grey Cup party?
Yeah.
Do you make some Grey Cup chili?
We'll make chili, and you know what? We'll be going to a friend's house, and
There you go.
there we go.
Love
Oh
it.
yeah, for sure. It'll be great. So here's what I got, Dad. Here's my Saturday and Sunday.
Okay, tell me.
Michigan, Ohio State.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Tessa Bonham and I have our standard bet.
Oh, yeah,
you know
of
what?
course.
She still roots for the Scarlet and Gray. I get it. She's in the
The
Sports Hall
Ohio
of Fame
State,
at the
yeah.
Ohio State. And I'm a Michigan guy, so so I haven't won. I keep,
And Ohio
I keep
State-
having to give her these bottles of wine, and she never invites me to even have a glass.
good
with
But
her.
this
Oh,
year,
yeah, they
but
can't be
this year,
bad.
Craig, Ohio State is not favored for the first time in like decades.
I know, but we talk about rivalries.
Yeah.
The senior class has never lost to Michigan. You can just kind of throw them out. So that's
Yeah.
my weekend. Saturday and
Okay.
Sunday, Michigan, Ohio State, and then I got the Grey Cup.
All right, go Coach Harbaugh. Come on, Coach Harbaugh. He's crazy, but he's good.
Yeah, he is.
Thank you, Craig.
Thanks.
This has been great.
Thanks, buddy.
This has been great. Okay, before
You can
we,
just wander out now.
we got a.
Enjoy that O. Henry.
I'm not going to eat it. Do you want it?
No, I'm better.
You want
No,
it?
I'm
O.
okay.
Henry?
I've already
O.
had
Henry?
I've already had some Mr. Sub.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not going to eat this. So maybe if I leave it here, where does Landsberg sit in the morning?
Oh,
No
good
clue.
question.
Where's
Probably right where Dan is.
Right here.
Yeah,
Right where
yeah.
Dan
Leave him in O.
That's
Henry.
perfect. And then if Landsberg doesn't do it, then Hayes will for sure do it.
See you, Craig.
Thanks, Craig. That was fun. What a guy. Nice. So much fun. That was a blast. I just wanted to touch on a little podcast news with because Christoph had some funny
Oh, I thought
podcasts.
he had news about the podcast.
Oh,
like,
no. No,
we've
there's
been
never any.
syndicated worldwide.
Well, I guess we are kind of syndicated
Yeah.
worldwide if you think about it.
You just download the podcast and you're in another country.
Well, let me ask you this while Stoff is getting that queued up. Who would be, at this moment, your dream podcast guest? And I mean, you could get anybody you wanted.
I think you know the answer. I sent
Craig Button, and we got him.
I sent an email or a text about this a week or two ago.
Eric Andre?
Bob Cole.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is his last year, supposedly.
That seems attainable somehow.
Mention it, producer Tim. No. You know, I don't even start. I'm like, never mind.
I think, for me, my dream podcast guest would be our D.C. correspondent.
Hi, Dan.
Why?
So much.
How are you, buddy? Where are you calling us from?
I'm actually in the West Village in New York, in my apartment. I'm home.
Okay.
Feels good to be in America, and everything's really good.
Ben Teller is
really
on the
good,
line,
guys.
everybody. Ben Teller, our buddy from Fox in L.A. He was our social media guy. Now he's traveling the world. And you spent some time in D.C., and you have an interesting story. You went on a date with someone who may be a spy.
Okay, so we'll set the table. And Dan, I just want to start off by, I'm looking forward to your advice because this is a very sticky situation. So about 3 months ago when I first moved to New York, I met a girl on a dating app. And we went on a date. It was pretty good. It wasn't, great. I took her to a nice Italian restaurant. We split a bottle of wine, appetizer, a couple meals. I thought it was okay. I wasn't, really into her, but I was like, I could probably give it a second date. The next day, she texted me and she's like, hey, just want to say thank you so much for dinner, but I don't feel a romantic connection to you. And then I was like, okay, I'm not really upset about it. I told her I appreciated her honesty. And I said, great. And then I was just like, I could always use more Jewish friends in New York. Because I was like, she seemed decent and could use some more friends. She's like, yeah, I would love that. So, haven't talked to her in 2.5 months. She posts something on Instagram. I kind of slide in her DMs, some emoji. And she texts me right away. She's like, Ben, how are you? And I'm like, I'm good. I'm actually in Bangkok right now working. And she's like, what are you doing in Bangkok? Yada, yada, yada. She's like, well, I would love to hang out when you get back. And I was like, sure, whatever. We can hang out. I don't respond. 2 weeks later, she texts me. She's like, hey, are you back yet? And I'm like, no, I'm actually still in Bangkok for another month. She's like, okay, let me know when you're back. So I get back. She follows up again. She's like, hey, are you free this weekend? And I said, no, I'm actually going to Virginia, but I'll be back Friday night. We can hang out next weekend. And this was present time. I got back this Friday. I get a text from her 9 p.m. at night on Friday. She's like, hey, are you back from Virginia? And I'm like, yeah, actually, I just got back. She's like, what are you doing tomorrow? Do you want to go to brunch? It's on me since you got the last one. And I'm like, okay, sure. So we go to brunch. We're sitting there talking, and this is where it gets interesting. I knew she worked for the government. Yeah. Well, I had to set the stage. You know how it is, Dan.
No, you could have said it a lot quicker. Continue.
So we're sitting down talking about my job, her job. I knew she worked for the government, whatever. And then she's gets into this thing where she's like, yeah, I just took a test and I passed. And I'm like, oh, congratulations. What was this test? She was like, oh, it was an agility test. And I had to exercise. And side note, she says she runs 5 miles at lunch every day. She's kind of an A-type personality. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. She goes, yeah, I've been going to Virginia every other month. And I'm like, government. I was like, do you go to Quantico? And she goes, yeah. I'm an FBI agent. And I said, oh, wow. And then I was like, can you tell me that? And she's like, yeah, I'm not in the CIA. So literally, she's a cybersecurity who's now going to be an in-field FBI agent. And she paid for the meal. And she's coming boxing with me tomorrow. And she invited me over for Thanksgiving at her parents' house in Westchester on Thursday.
Whoa. So is this a friendship invite or?
I don't know. I mean, Dan, what do you think? Date the FBI agent. She's trying to have friends. She, like, what's your 2 cents?
Yeah, Toolsy, what's your 2 cents?
She already said she doesn't like you sexually. She wants to be friends.
But
she followed up like 4 times.
Yeah, that I have to agree with Ben there. Why is she following up so much then?
She doesn't know anyone else.
Do you think I'm her only friend in New York?
Do you think that, Ben?
I hope not. I mean, I'm more like, okay, so there's this bad. I was less attracted to her until I found out she was an FBI agent, and now I'm very turned on.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
But she, whatever level of intimacy she felt towards you, which was 0, now that she's gotten to know you, it's even less. So,
Well, I was going to go with the opposite. I think she judged me before she knew me, and now she actually likes me for being a decent dude, and now I think my chances are better.
Yeah, that's possible. Maybe she sees marriage material there. But you just
Well,
want to bang the
hold
FBI
on.
agent.
Yeah, or I want to have friends in high places for when I get in trouble.
When are you going to get in trouble? Can she help us out with Dan's Olga issue? Can she track her down?
She might, okay, so we talked about this. The number one way when you're trying to find 2 people who you're not sure where they are or someone who's missing, and I've heard this before, and she confirmed it, you look at their pornography search history.
Ooh. Can they still do that if you
Wait.
continue to clear it every day?
How would you,
sometimes several times a day?
How would you get this from someone?
Well, in the FBI and the CIA, right, they have access. So if you don't hide your cookies on Google and you don't have an incognito window, pretty much you can just look what people are typing in. So if you go to Pornhub and it's the same people in 4 different countries, you know it's the same dude.
Oh, my God.
Isn't that fascinating?
Ben, I'm
Yeah, me too. I'm disgusting. It's bad.
Oh, man. What, are you dating anyone else, Ben? What else is going on aside from Quantico?
So, it's interesting, right? There are a couple people that I'm talking to, but everyone is a little bit off. I'm not really vibing with anybody.
What is interesting about any of that? You said this is interesting.
Well, because I'm going on dates and I'm meeting these girls, but I'm bored after 45 minutes, and I just don't want to do this anymore.
Do you find it harder to date in New York than LA?
No, I think it's much easier.
Really?
So many more people in such a closer proximity.
Right.
Everyone goes out at night for happy hour after work, or it's a very communal space, so everyone's super close. So
LA's so spread out, cars, everything. Yeah, that makes sense.
Hey, just wait. This is interesting. We're out of time.
Oh, wait.
No,
Wait.
we're definitely not out of time. There's no way. I just had 5 minutes.
No, yeah, we're out of time.
Wait, we can't.
We've already run over.
Wait, we can't be done.
Yeah, we're out of time.
Oh, wait.
No. Yeah.
It's time for Would You Rather.
Okay, so listen, I've had a month. I've done so much deep thought. Dan, guess what? It's not related to family.
All right. Okay.
Finally.
Okay. The second part. So what I'm using in this Would You Rather is a term that my 22-year-old cousin gave me. And I had this moment where she said this to me, and I said, what does that mean? And I was like, oh, I'm old. So she had to explain what it meant. So I had Christoph pull up the Urban Dictionary definition of pegging. Are we familiar with this?
Would you guys like to find out what pegging is?
I think I know.
I think I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
but can you just read it for me for the user?
sure.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
the listeners, pegging is anal sex reversed. Instead of the man sticking his penis up the woman's butt, the woman wears a strap-on and sticks it up the man's butt.
Oh yeah, I knew that.
Okay. Well, look,
Pegging.
I didn't know what it was. Maybe I'm not cool. So the third part of this question is, I need you guys to tell me your childhood crushes.
Tiffany Amber Thiessen.
Okay, nice. That's a good one. Dan?
It's got to be somebody.
Michelle Pfeiffer. Who is it?
Casey and Finnegan.
Judi Dench. No, seriously, there's got to be someone. Oh, Jennifer Love Hewitt. That's everybody. No?
Wasn't
Mine
a lot
was
of,
Britney Spears.
Alyssa Milano.
Sure, Britney Spears, why not? But that was still
Okay,
that was
Britney
like when I was
Spears. Okay.
older.
Yeah,
That wasn't
that's
when I was a
older. What
kid.
about when you were like
That's fine. Okay.
13?
I wasn't allowed to
Yeah,
watch shows with women in them.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, ready for it? Here it goes. Would you rather get pegged by your crush or never have sex ever again?
Yeah,
What? You would absolutely get pegged.
Yes,
wouldn't
1,000%. That is the worst would you rather ever.
Okay. So that was the PG version.
Okay, no, you asked your question.
I have a level 2. One I have written down here is more inappropriate, but I thought Dan would get mad. It was,
Oh, this is good.
Would you rather get pegged by your crush in front of your parents or never have sex ever again?
In front of your parents, or no, still in front of my parents. I'd be like, guys, you got to watch this because I got to get laid. I can't not have sex. So Dan,
Dan?
I already answered one.
that's
thanks
a yes.
for coming on, Ben.
That's 100% a yes.
Let's talk
for sure.
to you in 2020.
I'll let you know when I get my security clearance, and I'll come to the border. And we'll
Yeah,
hang out.
Ben, we'll I'm sure we'll talk around around our holiday special when we talk to all our pals.
Yeah, maybe I'll come take a quick flight up.
Oh.
It's only about an hour.
It's only an hour. Ben, you're
Yeah,
welcome
maybe-
anytime. Toolsy's
Yeah,
got
when are you
tons of
guys
room.
going on vacation?
So, well, I'm about to have another kid, but yeah. So, I probably, but then we're taking a week off around Christmas. So, I don't know. We'll get back to you on that. But the bottom line is, you're welcome anytime. Come up, work on the show. You could do some social media stuff. You and Toolsy could head out on the town.
I think this is, I was looking for something to do around the holidays. I'm not going back to LA. I would like to be with some
that's
people
my
that
phone.
care about me. So that's
Tim
Dan.
is calling me.
Answer. Put
Okay,
on
one
speaker.
sec, Ben.
Hang on.
Hold on. Hello?
Are you guys coming over?
For what?
For what?
For Naylor.
Oh, we have a Naylor interview?
30.
It's now?
Yes.
Ooh.
Okay.
Are
Ben,
we late?
Ben, we got to go. We got to go do Dave
They
Naylor.
have an event starting in the hotel lobby where they are
Oh.
soon.
Okay, we got to run.
All
Thanks
right.
for listening, everybody. And
Bye, Ben.
we got to go do TV.
See you, Ben.
Talk to you next week.